Hey folks, this is Kelani. Welcome back to the Antorus raid guide for normal and heroic. Let's have a look at the last boss, ARGUS the Unmaker. This fight consists of 4 phases. Phase 1 lasts until 70% health, Phase 2 is 70 to 40% health, Phase 3 lasts until you kill all of the adds in that phase, and the 4th and final phase is from 40% until you manage to kill ARGUS. During the first phase, you will tank ARGUS in the middle of the room with your group stacked up tightly. Your range will want to be relatively close to the boss. Your tanks will need to face ARGUS away from the raid at all times because of his sweeping scythe ability, which will deal a large amount of damage in a semicircle in front of the boss. This applies a debuff to your tanks and they will need to tank swap every 3 stacks. ARGUS' main ability to watch out for in this phase is Cone of Death. Whenever the boss reaches 100 energy, he will target a random player and slash out with his scythe, creating a huge cone of death fog. Having your raid stacked up means you can predict exactly where this cone will appear and you can move accordingly. Every time he casts Cone of Death, you just need to step to the side. The death fog deals a huge amount of damage to anyone who stands in it, so you need to move quickly. Make sure you stack on the edge of the previous Cone of Death so you can make the most of the room available to you. The boss will also apply SOULBLIGHT to random raid members. These debuffs will be staggered and the players who receive them will need to run behind the stacked group and let the debuffs expire. When they expire, they will drop a patch of death fog, so make sure you place them next to the already existing death fog so you don't waste any room. The boss will also cast Tortured Rage periodically, which just deals unavoidable raid-wide damage. During this phase, Golganath will provide you with some buffs in the form of orbs. There's 2 orbs which will be placed above random players' heads, and after a short delay they will fall where the players are standing. I would recommend putting one of these orbs just to the side of your melee group and the other just to the side of your ranged group. There's a frosty looking white orb and a blue lightning orb. If you run into the white orb, you will gain Strength of the Sea, which increases your haste and versatility by 2000. The lightning orb provides Strength of the Sky and increases your mastery and crit by 2000. You can get 1 stack of your buff per orb that spawns, and you can only have 1 of these buffs. If you run into the other buff, you will reset any stacks you had of the opposite buff. When the boss reaches 70% health, ARGUS will stop using his abilities and the platform will be covered in a raging storm. You'll want to stack in the middle of the room to avoid taking any damage while the storm washes away all the death fog. You will still want to face the boss away from the raid for when he starts casting Sweeping Scythe again. After the storm clears, your tanks need to drag ARGUS to one edge of the arena. The current tank will also receive a buff called Avatar of Aggramar, which increases their health by 100% but also allows them to redirect any damage from nearby players as long as they are stood on top of them. This is very important because every time ARGUS reaches 100% energy, he will place 2 SOULBURST debuffs onto random raid members and 1 SOULBOMB debuff. The 2 SOULBURST debuffs deal damage over time and the players need to run away from the raid and each other because when they expire they explode, dealing a huge amount of raid-wide damage that is reduced the further away the players are. The 2 SOULBURSTs are survivable as long as they get far enough away and get some heals, but the SOULBOMB debuff is lethal. This will also deal damage over time and explode for a huge amount of raid-wide damage. But the amount of damage is significant enough that it will almost certainly kill the player with the bomb unless they use an immunity. Thankfully, the tank with Avatar of Aggramar can run over with the SOULBOMB debuff, stack on top of them and take the damage themselves. The tank might need to use a damage reduction cooldown to ensure they survive the damage. The other tank should pick up ARGUS while the Avatar tank is taking care of the SOULBOMB. So your group should make a huge square, with the boss and the raid at one point, the 2 SOULBURST debuffs at 2 other points, and the SOULBOMB debuff at the last point. Make sure your SOULBOMB debuffs aren't running to the opposite corner of the raid, because the tanks might not be able to reach them in time. The other ability ARGUS will use during this phase is Edge of Obliteration, which spawns more and more scythes as the phase progresses. These scythes will spin in the air and mark a huge line across the encounter area. Just move out of those lines and you won't take any damage, but be careful of the SOULBURST and SOULBOMB debuffs as you move around. Once ARGUS reaches 40% health, he will enter phase 3, where the boss will disappear and you'll have to deal with 7 constellation adds. You'll have to kill all 7 adds to enter phase 4. You will want to stay loosely stacked in the middle of the room so you're always in range of healers and work your way through each of the 7 adds. The adds cannot be crowd controlled, moved or tanked, but will cast a few abilities at random players. Cosmic Ray will point a beam at random players. These players should just stay still while everyone else dodges the beams. Star Blast will target random players and deal a little bit of damage. You can interrupt it, but I would strongly advise against it. Cosmic Beacon will deal a lot of damage to a random player, but will also apply a huge damage over time effect on the entire raid. These casts have to be interrupted. Getting more than one stack of this debuff can easily kill your raid. On heroic mode, whenever you interrupt an ad, they will become immune to interrupts for 20 seconds. So if you interrupt the wrong thing, you can actually prevent yourself from interrupting the Cosmic Beacon, which would be incredibly painful. 2 ads will cast Cosmic Beacon at the same time, so keep an eye out and make sure both are interrupted. Throughout the phase, 2 of the ads can gain weapons randomly. One will gain the Sword of the Cosmos, while the other will have the Blade of the Eternal. Both of these weapons increase the ad's melee damage, and both ads will need to be tanked. While they have weapons, they won't cast any of their usual abilities, but the Sword of the Cosmos ad, that's the ad with the one big sword, needs to be tanked 20 yards away from any other ad, otherwise it will buff them. We just dragged this ad into the middle and killed it. The other weapon ad doesn't do anything too special, so you can drag it next to a stationary ad to allow your DPS to cleave them down. 15 seconds after the ads spawn, each one will get a debuff that increases the damage they take from a specific type of damage. There's Arcane, Fire, Frost, Holy, Nature, Physical, and Shadow vulnerabilities. Look for the ad with your type of damage vulnerability as a debuff and go to town. When you've managed to take down all 7 ads, Argus will play his cheat card and kill your entire raid. Thankfully, we have some titans on our side, and ENR spawns are gifted the Lifebinder tree. When you're able to release, you will want to run over to the tree immediately, avoiding all of the shadowy Shah ads on the way. During this phase, if you die at any time, you can release your spirit and run over to the tree to come back to life. There are limits to this power though. The tree has an energy bar, and that energy depletes every time someone resurrects. If the energy reaches 0, every player who resurrects after that will apply a debuff to the tree, which will start killing it. Your healers can keep the tree alive briefly, but it will ultimately die, so you still need to avoid dying as much as possible. The first thing you'll need to do in this phase is interrupt Argus's cast of End of All Things. If he finishes that cast, you will wipe instantly, so make sure it gets interrupted. During this phase, the boss will spawn several orbs around the room which start to slowly die. They will also be creating a void zone around themselves. When the orbs reach 0 health, they will deal a bit of raid-wide damage, but also deal a huge amount of damage in the area of their void zone. You should swap all of your DPS to these orbs and kill them as quickly as you can, so the void zones remain small. Whenever these orbs die, they will leave behind some motes of titanic power in the spirit world. You will still have to deal with Sweeping Scythe, except it's now called Deadly Scythe. This debuff increases the damage you take by quite a bit more, and it's now permanent. You'll want one tank to just keep taking scythe hits until they die. Then do the same with the other tank and rinse repeat. Whenever the tanks die, they should run around the spirit world and pick up the motes of titanic power. They're little orbs floating around down there. Picking these up will give energy to Khaz'goroth, and when he has 20 energy, he will empower the entire raid, increasing your damage, healing, and movement speed. If anyone dies accidentally, they should also hunt down some motes before returning to life. You will also still have to deal with SOULBURSTS and SOULBOMBs. When the boss reaches 50% energy, he will mark 2 players with SOULBURST, and at 100% energy he will mark 2 players with SOULBURST and 1 player with SOULBOMB. You're going to have to deal with these in the exact same way, except the SOULBOMB players will probably die unless they use a large cooldown or an immunity. Just make sure to get away from the raid so you don't take anyone else with you. The boss will also be casting his Tortured Rage, adding to the raid-wide damage already going on. You will also have to dodge all of the blue swirls as they deal a whole bunch of damage and apply a permanent damage over time effect if you get hit. And that's it. This last phase is a burn phase with a twist, as you can come back to life quite a few times before the tree dies. So, deal with the Death Fog and the Cones of Death in the first phase. It's all about Soul Bursts and Soul Bombs in the second phase with a few scythes flying around. The third phase pits you against a whole set of Celestial adds, and the fourth phase gives you Death as a resource to finish off Argus. So, that's all you should need to take down Argus the Unmaker on Normal and Heroic. Another awesome raid, and hopefully an awesome raid guide. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.